Welcome to the vlog. If you're new here, my name is Chris and I build productivity apps. I usually focus on one productivity app for video, so today I'm focusing on Luna. Some quick context, Luna is a budgeting app that I built to help me curb spending. It's also a way for me to just get better as a developer and a designer. So that's the app we're talking about today. So today's a big day because the app is finally live on the App Store. If you've been following the series over the last 5 months of me building this budgeting app, you know that this is a pretty big milestone. So there's two things we're gonna cover in this video. The first is what I did over the last 3 weeks to get it to this point where it's on the App Store now. There's a lot of little things that go into launching an app, and I thought it'd be great to document some of this stuff, especially if you're someone that's building your own app and you wanna know, okay, what do I need to do to prepare? And then we're also gonna talk about the future. So even though it took 5 months to get here, this is just the beginning. And I wanna talk about what the future looks like, what the roadmap looks like, what my next steps are, and how I'm thinking about iterating and growing the app. So those are the two things we're going to cover in this video today. By the way, if you didn't know, this is Luna. So this is who the app's named after. And if you downloaded the app, you probably recognize her from the app icon. She will forever be immortalized in this app. Are you excited about the launch? Yeah, she's super excited to be on the App Store. I'm actually so surprised that she's calmly sitting here. This isn't normal. Okay, I'm gonna go keep recording, okay? So the last 3 weeks, there actually weren't that many things reported. The app was actually relatively stable, so there wasn't much work to do on that end. So most of my time was actually spent on other things to prepare for this launch. The first major thing was creating App Store screenshots. It's something that's usually overlooked, and it's also something that a lot of developers, they kind of just like, don't take that seriously. And honestly, I don't even blame them. Like after you've spent months building an app, the last thing you wanna do is take time to create some App Store screenshots. So what I've seen a lot of developers do is just basically screenshot the app and just throw them on some sort of App Store generator. That does get the job done, but I actually think the App Store screenshots are way more important than people realize. When I'm scrolling through the App Store, if I see an app with really good screenshots, my opinion of them already becomes way higher. If I see an app with really low quality screenshots, I immediately just assume, oh, this isn't gonna be that good of an app. I do think it's worth going the extra mile on the App Store screenshots. That was something I had to work on. That took about 2 days, and my process was basically just choosing what are the core features of the app, how can I get that point across to the potential users. So one of the things I wanted to get across was, we have weekly and monthly budgeting all combined there, so I wanted that in the screenshot. Another thing was the widgets are really important. I want people to know that. There are notification reminders. So these were some of the core things I wanted to showcase. I made sure to dedicate a screenshot for each of these things. So I did some light research, went around the App Store, and I just tried to find screenshots that kind of drew my attention. Then basically I tried to recreate some of the elements that I liked. So here's a screenshot for an app that I like. Something I really liked were these floating background textures. It just made the screenshot feel a little bit less static and more alive. That was an element that I decided to pull and throw into my screenshot with these little money birds in the background. The other thing was colors. I tried a bunch of different color palettes. There were 2 that I settled on, and I did a quick poll just with people I knew, and most people really like this orange color. So that's the color I decided to roll with. I think these came out really well, so I'm glad I put in the extra time because I think it really makes the app listing page look so much better when you have high quality screenshots like this. Second thing was I updated the landing page. This one's a little bit more controversial, but because there really is only an iOS app, I decided not to invest that much time in the landing page. If there was a web app, that would be a different story, but I wanted the App Store listing to do most of the talking. I decided to just throw like a one-pager up here and just have like a link to go download it and a single screenshot on the right. You can kind of get a sense of what the app's gonna be about. In the future, I'm for sure gonna iterate on this and really add more details here, especially once I launch a web version or an Android app. For now, I just needed something. So a lot of people don't know this, but Apple actually does require you to have a landing page in order to be approved for the App Store. It could be really basic, but it needs to have some details about the app, but more importantly, it needs to have a way to contact and get support. I did have to throw up this quick bar at the top with a link to contact me and get support to be able to get through the App Store review. So that probably took like 2 hours, so not that much time, but very necessary to get approved. The next thing I did, which was probably the most impactful thing I did, was I created a feedback board. In my other app, Ellie, I have a feedback board, and that has been the single best decision that I made for the app. Before, I was just kind of relying on word of mouth, like users would tell me what they wanted and I would just kind of write it down on like a Notion doc or something. Then I implemented a feedback board. It's not just any feedback board. This feedback board lets people submit feedback but also upvote things that they want to see in the app. That upvote mechanism is so powerful because things just naturally start floating to the top. Once I implemented this feedback board for Ellie, I got such a good sense of what users wanted. And I knew I just had to do it for Luna as well. So I'm using the service called Canny. There's a link in the description if you want to check them out. So I added a link in the settings page to go to the feedback board. And when you click it, it automatically logs you in. So you can see all the things that users have requested. So you can upvote it. Then you can add feature requests if you don't see something on the board already. It's only been 2 weeks and I'm already seeing so much activity on here. And it's really giving me a sense of what users want to see in the app. For example, these 2 things are floating to the top right now. I would never have guessed that these 2 things were important to people. Recurring transactions is a huge one. That's not something that I really needed, but now that I think about it, I'm like, oh, that actually would be cool if I can, record my rent or record some subscriptions in the app, and it just automatically gets added. And then graphs and analytics. That's not really that important to me, but it's really good to know that this is what the users want. Having a feedback board like this really helps me prioritize what to work on. And I think that's super important for any app, especially at the early stages when you're not really sure where to take it. So I implemented the feedback board and I put it in 2 places. There's a link in the settings page, and I also included it in the welcome email when the user signs up. On that note, the other thing I implemented was welcome emails. So I'm using a service called Loops for this, and they basically allow you to create these email sequences so I can do things like when a user signs up, send them this welcome email. Setting up a service like this was something that I did way too late when I was working on my other app, Ellie, and I deeply regretted it. I didn't want to make the same mistake here. So before launch, I was like, I need to have this system in place right now. And the last thing I wanted to add into the app was the subscription paywall. So let's talk a little bit about pricing and what I decided to do with this app. This was probably one of the top questions I've gotten in some of my videos is, what are you going to price the app? How are you thinking about pricing? What I decided to first do is actually look at what are the other apps doing in the market. So what I noticed was that a lot of the major apps actually have a hard paywall, which means there's no free tier. You need to have an active subscription to use the app. So I've personally never done an app that has a hard paywall. This would probably be a really good time for me to test and try that out. I decided to follow in the footsteps of apps like Copilot, YNAB, and Monarch, and also do a hard paywall. I decided to price it at $4.99 a month, $49.99 a year, and $150 for a lifetime subscription. The way I settled on $4.99 was most of the other apps are priced at around somewhere between $10 to $15 a month. So I thought that $4.99 would be a really good starting price in relation to some of those other apps. I will admit that Luna is very feature light compared to some of those apps. My plan is over the next couple months to add a ton of different features where that $4.99 feels way more worth it. The long-term plan though is to keep increasing the value, keep adding features, especially some very competitive features like a banking integration, for example, and actually try to get it to a $9.99 a month price point. That's probably going to be the final target price point for the app, but I don't think we're going to hit that for like a year or 2. I do plan on adding a student and nonprofit discount as well, so that'll probably slash that down to $2.50 a month for people who qualify there. I'll probably have that out in a future update. Then I'm offering this lifetime plan at $150 for anyone that doesn't like subscriptions. Okay, so how did I come up with that price? It's basically 3 times the yearly price. Most users are going to churn before 3 years. If the average user is going to churn before 3 years, I think it's a pretty good deal for me as a developer. And if you're a consumer who uses it for more than 3 years, this is a really good deal for you as a consumer. To be honest though, there's really no science behind any of these numbers. These were kind of just gut feels off of me researching, and I have some experience doing pricing for my other app, Ellie, and these numbers are working, including the lifetime subscription, which shockingly, a lot of people do actually purchase that $300 lifetime subscription. My plan is that if you purchase at any of these price points, you will be grandfathered in. If there is a price increase in the future, you get the benefits of this lower price. So again, the $150 one time and the $4.99 might seem very high right now, but in 2 years, I think those are gonna feel really cheap compared to the value that the app is providing. Or at least that's the plan. So we'll see if that actually happens. That's kind of where I settled on for the pricing. I had 2 options when it came to how to do free trials. What most apps do is when the user signs up, they can automatically sign up for the trial through Apple, and after the trial, they'll automatically be billed $5 a month for their subscription. This is basically what almost 99% of the apps in the App Store do when they have a trial and subscription. I decided to do a different approach where when the user signs up for my app, they're automatically given that 14 days. They don't have to subscribe, they don't have to give me their credit card, nothing. And what happens is they're told, hey, you have a 14-day trial, there's nothing you need to do, I don't need your credit card. If you like it, you can go subscribe, and if not, there's nothing to cancel. The reason I like to do it that way is it's just really important for me personally to know that people are subscribing because they want to, not because they forgot to cancel the trial. If you're building an app, don't feel bad about doing that. This is the gold standard. You can do it that way if you want. I just chose to do it this route for personal reasons. If things aren't looking good and people don't like the hard paywall, or I realize, hey, maybe I should have a free plan and that'll be better for revenue, I might take the paywall down and just do a limited free plan or something. Maybe in a few videos I'll be backpedaling on this, but no matter what, should be interesting for you guys to see how this plays out. So after all this stuff was done, submitted to the App Store, was waiting patiently, and then boom, got hit with the first rejection. You have to give the users the ability to delete their own data. A lot of people don't know you need to have that in there, but Apple does require that in there now. Quickly implemented that in a few hours. So now you can go to the settings page. When you scroll down, there's a place where you can delete your account and all your data. Resubmitted the build, and then boom, got hit with a second rejection. They said I was missing the link to my terms of service and privacy policy in the description of the app. I've seen this before in the past. Some other developers were talking about this. For some reason, they really just want you to link it there in the description. So quickly added that, resubmitted, then boom, third rejection. This time they were saying the paywall wasn't clear enough. Like it wasn't clear enough to the reviewer that you needed the pro subscription. Now, when you don't have an active subscription and your trial runs out, there's a little banner that appears at the top that says, hey, there's no active subscription. Please subscribe to continue adding transactions. That was the third rejection reason. Had to make that more clear to them. And once I took care of all 3, Then we finally got approved, and now we're live on the App Store. So only 3 rejections, which compared to some of my other apps, it's actually not that bad. It's all good though. We're live on the App Store, and that's all that matters. Now that the app's on the App Store, let's talk about the future, because even though it took 5 months to get to this point, this is just the beginning for the app. Now that the app's live, I have one focus, and that's to improve retention. All that means is that when someone signs up, they stick to and continue to use the app. The way that I'm approaching retention is actually gonna be pretty simple. I'm just gonna listen to users, figure out what they want, and then build it. And then just keep repeating the cycle over and over again until I really nail the core feature set that gets people to stay on the app. For an app this early stage, usually the reason people sign up and drop off is because there is some sort of feature missing. The feedback board is a huge signal for me to figure out why are people dropping, what are people missing here? And then obviously I'm gonna just email people and talk to them. That's gonna be my #1 priority over the next couple months, is just figuring out the features, building and repeating the process until I'm confident that I have the core feature set down. Then once that's done, I'll focus on things like, optimizing the email sequence, optimizing the onboarding, optimizing notifications, like all that stuff. But for now, gonna keep it really simple and just try to figure out what those features are. And then finally, I'll be experimenting with some marketing stuff. Gonna try some interesting things like SEO is pretty big for budgeting apps, so gonna try some stuff in that department. Might even try working with some influencers and do maybe some paid advertising. And obviously videos like this that are documenting the process, which do let more people know about the app and technically is some marketing. If you haven't seen the other videos, go check them out. What's kind of cool is you can actually go back 5 months and see the first video I made about this app, where I was just talking about the idea of building a budgeting app. We're here 5 months later and people can actually go download it and try it themselves. If you like this kind of content, check out my Instagram and TikTok. I post almost every other day about building productivity apps. And obviously if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.